Welcome to Heading Virtual, Accessing Internships Online. Today we're going to look at how to succeed in a virtual internship, and we have two great co-panelists, Waverley Miller and Tyler DeVici. I'm going to give them a moment to introduce themselves, and then we'll go.
Perfect, thanks Julian. Hi everybody, as Julian mentioned, my name is Waverley Miller and I am the UK Programme Experience Manager at Virtual Internships. I've been working for our sister company, CRCC Asia, for just over 2 years now, and my primary role has been advising students looking for international internships. So throughout this experience, I've had the opportunity to really understand the benefits of undertaking an internship and how best to maximise the opportunities available. So yes, excited to discuss a little bit more about the best ways to succeed in an international internship from a remote perspective.
And I'm Tyler DeVici. As Julian said, I am currently the Digital Content and Social Media Manager for Virtual Internships. I've also worked with our sister company, CRCC Asia, for just under 2 years now. I'm actually based in our US office, but also have experience working in our Tokyo and Osaka offices. My primary role was in an advising position, and currently I manage, as I said, the digital content strategy and overseeing all of our marketing efforts. So very excited to share with you some of our advice for succeeding in your remote internship experience.
Wonderful. And so before we really start to unpack how to succeed in a virtual internship, we do just always want to start with what is a virtual internship. And so call it what you will, a remote internship, virtual, distant, online, teleworking, and more. It all really means the same thing. You will be completing your internship without a commute and directly from your own laptop. Some of the skills and resources to succeed at an in-person internship will be the same as a virtual internship. But what you can see in the table here is that there are different threats and opportunities that really exist for in-person, all internships, or virtual. And so today, Tyler and Waverley are really going to work to unpack how to succeed at a virtual internship specifically, really looking at how you need increased initiative, how networking is structured, and so different tools to circumnavigate that, technical issues, and more. And so really understanding the differences here will allow you to excel, not just in an in-person internship, but also in a virtual internship. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Waverley take it over.
Perfect. Thanks, Julian. So now we understand what a virtual internship is. Why do we need to consider virtual learning, and how can we succeed in this remote environment? So, due to recent world events, including obviously COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a strong shift from in-person to online learning opportunities. This shift may have lasting effects with increased employees working part-time or full-time remotely. Here at Virtual Internships, we want to best support our partners and participants in creating alternative avenues to gain work experience, increase understanding cross-culturally, and maintain access to these opportunities despite these major world events. So, as Julian mentioned, the main part of this webinar is to run through our top 5 tips to succeed in an online work environment. You can see on this slide that we have an overview of our top 5 tips. So communication, time management and organization, taking initiative, understanding the company culture, and making yourself known. So moving firstly onto communication, this will be our first tip you will need to be successful whilst completing an online internship. You'll have many touch points with your supervisor throughout your internship, and so the most important step is to figure out how your supervisor and your colleagues will communicate. So you should definitely consider the likes of messenger apps such as Slack or GChat. And if this is the main way of communicating, ensure that it's always open and accessible and that you understand how to best use the messenger app. If the communication tool is still through email, you'll want to make sure that you can match your colleague's style and tone. This means that if internally all your colleagues use the same greeting and signature, it's best that you adopt that as well. And if the email is the #1 mode of communication, you'll also want to figure out how to keep everything organized using clear subject lines and creating folders to store key messages so that your inbox does not get overwhelmed. We expect the supervisor and intern to have at least one email exchange each day, and hopefully a video call once a week or every 2 weeks at the minimum. You should also receive regular feedback for improvement, and Tyler will touch upon this later when delving deeper into the virtual internship program and what's included in terms of the support network and coaching that we offer. So moving on to our second tip, it will be time management and organization. So with the flexibility of a remote internship, it is up to you to create a timetable and schedule to ensure that you're able to fit your internship and projects around your other priorities, whether that may be university work, extracurricular activities, or other jobs and responsibilities. You'll need to make sure to prioritize your projects and make sure that you set personal deadlines. And you'll also need to clarify your projects and availability to work around your supervisor and your teammates' schedules as well. Because whilst a supervisor will be able to see when you're online, they won't be able to see exactly what you're working on. So we would suggest getting into a habit of checking in at the start of each day to say good morning and maybe lay out the key priorities that you're looking to tackle during that day. And then at the end of each day, it's always polite to give a rundown of your progress and let your supervisor know when you're signing off for the day. There is potential as you move through the internship that your supervisor will lower the number of check-ins as you set a routine, but providing strong check-ins at the start of your internship will help your supervisor know you're working on and the capacity that you have to take on more work. It'll also just set a general rapport, I guess, with your supervisor and make you more approachable. So if your supervisor doesn't set a weekly or bi-weekly direct check-in within your first week of working, why not take the initiative and reach out and request one to be scheduled? If you think about it, a lot can be lost in translation through written communication. So for example, someone's tone or the importance of the information in an email can be lost. So a check-in call will definitely help to make sure everyone is on the same page. And thirdly, take the initiative. Remote work puts more responsibility on the individual to be proactive in requesting support and potentially more work. So if you come across times where you're not working to your full potential, then it is up to you to reach out and see where else you could support. In the first instance, we would always suggest speaking to your supervisor and asking if there are any additional projects or tasks that you can take on. Maybe they just haven't realized that you have capacity for more work. If your supervisor has no additional projects, ask them if there are any colleagues you could reach out to and volunteer your support. This may allow the supervisor to make a connection to a colleague for you. If no additional work is to be found, why not review work that you have already been doing and see if you can potentially create your own work? If you're completing a project, let's say for example, a social media project, and you've got to look at the next 2 months, why not go the extra mile and do 3 months or 4 months? Or if you're completing a key internal project, why not look at additional research that you might have missed, like SWOT analysis or competitor research? Finally, if you aren't at capacity for projects and work, and there are no additional projects that can be found at that moment, why not use this time to brush up on industry and company knowledge, and maybe also think about developing hard skills like software and language skills? So yeah, I'll let Tyler take over now.
Thank you so much, Waverley. And to move along to the fourth point, we like to talk about the importance of understanding the company's culture. And this is really in the hopes of developing what we would call cultural agility, which is a very, very valuable skill, especially for those who are considering an international career. So I've kind of, gotten this down to 5 points. And the first one is to really take steps to understand the difference between an individualistic versus a collectivist culture. If you've never heard these terms, I do recommend you do some research and read a little bit about these to kind of simplify it a little bit. An individualistic culture would be one that, as the name suggests, favors kind of the individual. So puts a lot of emphasis on things like self-reliance and working autonomously. You see this a lot in a country like the United States, whereas collectivist is for the collective or for the group. So employees are taught to work for the betterment of the company, and really kind of fosters a lot of collaboration. So an example country of this would be something like Japan. Now, the reason why these are important and these frameworks tend to really relate to most companies is because these tend to dictate how individuals interact with one another, how work is dealt, and it also impacts the second point, which is hierarchy. So every company, depending on which of these frameworks they would follow, would really kind of look at hierarchy a little bit differently. Some companies follow a very vertical hierarchy, where let's say the CEO at the very top only really communicates with the person or people who report directly to them. Whereas in more of a vertical, or what you call maybe a fluid hierarchy, it wouldn't be uncommon for a CEO to speak with an intern on maybe even a daily basis. So as you take steps to understand these points, especially about your company, you can maybe get a little bit of a better idea as far as what your internship is going to look like, how often you'll be communicating with the people above you. And it also kind of leads into the next point, which is to take steps to understand the expectations. So any company is going to have different expectations for their interns. You might be the only intern, you might be one of 10. So you need to understand what is going to be expected of you, whether it's what you need to have completed by the end of the internship, what you hope to get out of it, when a certain project is due. If you're never unsure of these things, if you are unsure of these things, definitely ask. I encourage students to always ask for clarification, especially because the last thing you want to do is if you're unsure of something and you try to guess when something's due and you end up getting that wrong, it would have just been better for you to ask for clarification in the first place. You should always ask, you should always be okay with asking your supervisor questions. And time zone is another point we talk about. So the reason why this is important is because in the virtual internship program, our internships span all around the world. Virtual internships as a company, we are a very global company. So for example, I'm located in the United States and I'm constantly interacting with my colleagues in Japan, in South Korea, in the UK. So what we need to understand, those of us who work in an international company, is you might not be able to get a response from a colleague who's located, 12-hour time difference away. You might not get a response in 5 minutes. And so if you are located in the US and your company's in China, you might need to work a little bit different hours than your typical 9 to 5. And the aim of that would be to try to have some time during each of your days in which you are on at the same time as your colleagues, and subsequently for response time as well. So just be a little bit patient with that. If you ever are waiting for a question to be answered, as Waverley said in one of her slides, maybe take some steps to try to find something else to do while you wait for a response. And I feel that all 4 of these do bleed very well into the last point, which is to be open-minded. If you think about it, the point of any internship is to learn. It's to grow as a person. It's to understand a completely new perspective. And it's really hard to take all that information in and absorb it if you are not open-minded, if you're not open to seeing new perspectives, to understanding a new culture. And again, the benefit of this international remote internship is that you're going to be exposed to a lot of new things. So remember to keep an open mind. And I would like to move on to the 5th point, which is to make yourself known. This might be one that does kind of get forgotten about sometimes, but this is especially important in a remote internship because chances are you may not ever meet your colleagues or your supervisor in person. So this is really your chance, and you want to make the most out of this experience to get to know these great professionals in your field, some of whom have decades of experience and knowledge to share with you. So there's a couple things I feel like you can do to really take steps to make yourself known. The first is to introduce yourself or ask to be introduced. So in the first week of your internship, most supervisors will send out an email to their team to introduce you as the new intern and make sure that they introduce you to the relevant people who you'll be working with. Now, if you find yourself collaborating with somebody very often who you've never actually been formally introduced to, it might be a very good step to just send a long, quick introduction, or if you're more comfortable, ask your supervisor to introduce you. I think that being on a name-to-name basis with people is very important. It allows you to really build a relationship, and as you continue to build that rapport, you can then do things like Waverley said in her slide, which is to check in with people. I think this is always just a very nice gesture. It shows that you are, wondering how people are doing, and in this new age of remote work, sometimes it can be easy for people to really feel disconnected from their colleagues. So checking in with people, seeing how they're doing, and if you want to even take that one step further, you can offer your support on certain projects. I'm sure Waverley and Jillian would both agree. That's how I've gotten involved in some pretty exciting projects, just by offering my support. Most of the time, if you're offering to help somebody, they will probably take it, whether you can help with research or you can help with some design, editing some text for grammar. Just offering your support will really help you to take ownership of some pretty exciting tasks, and who knows what you might be able to get involved with. And the last point is to definitely participate in any type of meetings or company events, such as this webinar. So virtual internships, we do global calls every few weeks. It's very important that all of our colleagues are present on these. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be speaking or offer to present a webinar, but just having that up on the screen, just tuning in and being engaged really shows that you are trying to learn more about the company, and you will probably learn a lot about what's going on in the company, what is their strategy looking like, and that's a very, very good professional development opportunity. So hopefully you can take these 5 pieces of advice and kind of think about how they fit into you going into a remote internship. And what we want to do now is just give a brief overview as to the virtual internship program and talk a little bit about some of the options. So our program has actually been around for a few years now, back in 2018. And since then, we've connected hundreds of students to these great remote internships all around the world. Now, a great benefit of our program is that it's designed to really offer a lot of support to our interns, in addition to being very customizable with a lot of program options. So for example, you are able to select the program duration, whether you want to do an internship for 1, 2, or 3 months, and also the daily hours, or sorry, the weekly hours, so 20 or 30 hours per week. The program cost is $1,595 US, and that is the same regardless of program duration. So in addition to being guaranteed an online internship, you also are given a lot of other inclusions, which you can see some of those depicted in that graph below. So like Jillian kind of said, we do webinars and guest speaker series pretty much every week. We have an online internship curriculum that you have full access to. You would be connected with a full a program experience manager, which is somebody like Waverley, who will help kind of walk you through the process of the internship, checks in with you every so often to make sure that you're having good progress. And we also do provide things like 3 months access to the Rosetta Stone program. So a lot of great inclusions for the virtual internship program. And on the next slide, we can see here is the focuses. So essentially going through the internship program, if you're looking at this and you see yourself wanting to join up with this program, you will need to select a focus, and there's really only 2 choices. So think about essentially what are you looking to get out of the internship? Are you more focused on, say, a country? So that would be track 1, the international focus. In this option, you would select your #1 choice for the country in which your company would be located. So let's say you really want to build up a network in Japan. We could guarantee that your company would fall in Japan, and you would then pick your top 3 career fields for your internship, and we would guarantee 1 of the 3. Now, in the other option, track 2, this would be essentially the opposite. So if you are very set on wanting to build your skills in the technology field, we can guarantee that your internship will be in technology, and then you would select your top 3 locations. So this option might be a little bit better for somebody who's very set on the field, but is open to exploring a few different locations. And on the next slide, we can see the career fields. So it is a very extensive list, everything from business to real estate to hospitality, legal, environmental, engineering. You can really read through all this list, and depending on your choice from the previous slide, you'll either need to select your #1 or your top 3 choices. If you're having a little bit of trouble, one thing you can think about is how your choices fit into the countries, which is what we offer on the next slide. So for example, marketing is really excellent in somewhere like the United Kingdom. China tends to be great for legal internships, Japan for technology. So there is naturally a lot of connection between certain fields and certain countries. So you can maybe look at that in helping to determine your options. And similarly to the slide with the options that I mentioned, you're either selecting your #1 choice country or your top 3. And we do conclude with the admissions process. So if you have been doing this webinar and doing some research about our program and you are ready to start going through the process, you're going to want to go on our website, which is virtualinternships.com. Think about that focus that you're going to be selecting and start to fill out your application, which asks for some basic information, your preferred start date, your duration, things like that. Once that is submitted, you will then be prompted to go to our RIVS system, which is where you would record yourself answering some questions via video. These video application, along with this, your application will be sent to our team, and it will be reviewed by a virtual internship staff member who will connect with you via email over the next few days with your official acceptance offer. If you are indeed accepted onto the program, the way that you basically commit yourself and get your placement process started would be to submit the first half of the payment fee, which would be $800 US. And that would allow us to actually start placing you at a company. So hopefully that gives you a good overview as to the program itself. I'm going to now turn it back to Waverley to discuss a case study.
Perfect. So just to finish off then, we have a placement case study and some alumni feedback to look at. Students are always interested in the type of work and projects they will undertake on a remote internship. So we wanted to give you an example. So on this slide, you can see that Gideon, one of our virtual internship alumni, decided to go through the career field focus track that Tyler just mentioned, and specifically the legal field. So each student will be given a specific project plan outlining the tasks and projects that you're likely to undertake during your 1, 2, or 3 month internship. As you can see from this example, Gideon was given the opportunity to gain industry-specific skills and work alongside a team on projects including patent, trademark strategy, and the formation of partnerships and strategic alliances within a legal capacity. And then on the next slide, just to finish off, is feedback from one of our alumni, Julia. Back in 2018, one of our first participants, and Julia said, "My virtual interning has allowed me to take advantage of opportunities in places I could never visit and meet people that will help me achieve my goals in life." So we can see that Julia identifies that her virtual internship offered an opportunity where previously there may have been some sort of barrier, whether it's a physical barrier in terms of traveling or potential financial barriers. And this internship has still given her the industry-specific knowledge and skills whilst building up her international network.
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Waverley and Tyler, for that amazing presentation on the 5 tips on really how to succeed in a virtual internship, as well as introducing all of you to our virtual internship program. We do have a couple questions in the question and answer function of Zoom, and we welcome any students to ask more as we go along, but we're just going to dive right in. And so, Tyler, as a first question, looking at our virtual internship program, are they open to graduates or is it only for students? Is there any age limits or requirements in the virtual internship?
Sure, thank you so much, Jillian. Yes, so essentially our virtual internship program is designed for any student or young professional. So anybody who's currently in university, or maybe you've just graduated, we've hosted people of really all ages to get these great remote working experiences. Now, we actually did just design a program specifically for students between the ages of 14 and 18, which we are calling the Foundations program. So this would be a little bit of a different type of program and more project-based. So on our website, you can read about both of these, and depending on which level you are, see which one you might be best fit for, whether it's the Foundations or the traditional internship program.
Wonderful. And Waverley, a question for you is, looking at during the internship, seeing as the intern is not next to the supervisor and really can't be seen, if this intern does need help or really can't complete a task, is it okay for them to reach out to their supervisor or colleagues and ask for help?
Yeah, Gillian, absolutely. As I mentioned during one of my first slides, we were talking about communication, and we do understand the difficulties and maybe the unnatural feeling of not being able to turn to someone in the office and answer any questions that they have straight away. So we would obviously recommend using the messenger apps if that's the easiest way that your supervisor is happy to answer your questions. It will depend on a case-by-case basis, but we would suggest, either popping your questions in an email and giving your supervisor time to respond, or setting up a call with them if you do have a couple of different questions that you'd like to ask in one go. But absolutely, we would always encourage you to ask questions if you're not sure about a task, and if it's out with a specific project but you do have a question, do feel free to reach out to your program experience manager. As I said, my role is definitely to just help students with any issues or questions that they have throughout their program.
Beautiful. And another question, Tyler, is really looking at navigating the vast time differences that can really exist with a company and a student. And so if a student is placed in a company that is at 8, 10, 12 hours apart, what steps do the host company or the intern need to take to make that difference work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jillian. And I think that it really is on a kind of case-by-case basis. It's really going to be for the intern and the supervisor to decide what is a good time frame for the student to be working that may best coincide with the company. So for example, maybe this means working a little bit more evening hours. So if you're doing full-time, 8 hours a day, maybe instead of 9 to 5, maybe you're doing, 12 to 8. It's just one of those things where, in order to have the best, situation and really to be able to get the most out of the program and be online with most of your colleagues as best as possible, there is going to need to be a little flexibility from both sides. And, sometimes maybe that means the supervisor getting on a little bit early or staying on a little bit later in order to have more overlap with the intern. So we have designed the program to really try to best meet both the supervisor and the interns time zones, and the program experience managers like Waverley and our placement team really do a great job of supporting both of those parties to ensure that again the best medium is made for both of them.
Wonderful, Tyler. And to really hone in on the time difference, it is really just being flexible and realizing that virtual internships or virtual work is about the what you do and not the when. And so it's not focusing on that 9 to 5. And while a lot of your work hours might exist in your traditional time, you might just have to show that greater flexibility by saying, yes, of course, I'm going to work 9 to 5 today, but I will attend that early 7 a.m. meeting to make sure we can connect and really unpack in real time. And so it's really showing what Tyler and Waverley have unpacked, and that flexibility and adaptability in making sure it works and that you meet the needs of the host company. And so with that, I think we have just one more question. And so Waverley, I'll let you take this one. And I think it's a really good question to end on. Waverley, will potential employers value a virtual internship in the same way they would an in-person internship?
Okay, great question. So the short answer is yes, but you will want to work harder being able to reflect on and articulate the skills that you've gained. And Virtual Internships has created a platform for students to think about this during the whole process, and that's why we have Career Bridge, because we offer standardized learning outcomes, and it's an opportunity for the students to enhance their self-awareness and be able to articulate their experiences to future employers. And I also just wanted to point out that the virtual internships that we offer, these are real projects with real companies. This is not a made-up project that some companies have been offering, but it's a real-life project that will help the company, whether it's with market research or data analytics. You will be helping the company improve their efficiency, I guess.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you all so much for the time you have given us in learning more about how to succeed in a remote internship. To confirm, this is a 3-part webinar series. So last week we introduced to the 8 reasons why considering virtual internships is a great opportunity this summer. Today we just looked at how to succeed in a remote internship. And next week we will look at from virtual to in-person, applying transferable skills for success. So we do suggest that you watch our past webinars on YouTube, or if you enjoyed this conversation, to sign up for our next delivery next Wednesday at the same exact time, where we can really talk about these transferable skills and why a virtual internship opportunity is as good as an in-person opportunity and really will get you to the next stage. I thank you all so much for your time. If you did have any additional questions, please reach out to hello@virtualinternships.com with any follow-up, and we will follow up with you directly to send the copy of the YouTube video as well as PDF. So thank you so much for your time and energy today. We loved having you, and hope you have a wonderful day.